I feel like the more constraints you have, the more freedom you have. And if you see it from that framework, you're going to think of things that other people aren't even thinking about.
Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of the Good Enough Mompreneur Podcast, where we explore stories and strategies of remarkable women who navigate the delicate balance of motherhood and entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Angela Mashuli. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I know it's such a busy time of year. You're doing all the things for your family and your business to finish strong. So thank you for your time today to tune into this episode. And before I get started, I just want to remind you of my free mini course that's now available, 5 Keys to Confidence. You can enroll by going to mombusinesscoach.com/learn to find out how you can show up confidently in 2024 to implement the goals and all of the things that we talk about in this podcast episode with my amazing guest. My guest today is the wonderful Tanya Alvarez. She is the co-founder of OwnersUP, which is a really interesting cohort accountability group setup for solo entrepreneurs. So join me today as Tanya shares her inspiring journey from overcoming health challenges to build a multi-million-dollar business at the age of 25, and her passions for preserving personal happiness while pursuing entrepreneurial success. She has such great tips for stress management, time mastery, goal prioritization, and her unique focus multiplier strategy. So join us as we unravel the blueprint for achieving a more work-life balance with the insightful Tanya Alvarez. Welcome, Tanya, to the podcast. Thank you for joining me today. You have such an impressive background, not only on your education, but you're the founder and CEO of OwnersUP, and it's so awesome. I can't wait to talk more about what you do with OwnersUP, but welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Yeah. Well, also too, we're recording this in, during Latin American Heritage Month. And I love talking to Latina entrepreneurs. They just have this fire and this spirit that I love tapping into. So this is also, a time when we're just celebrating that and just bringing that,
the spice,
that fire,
right?
that spice. Yeah, I know. It's awesome. So, I think it's important to mention that too right now. So tell us about OwnersUP and what you're doing in a little intro, set the stage.
Yeah. So I started my first company at 25. I didn't have a rich uncle. I actually had still student loans, and I started it with my credit card. Yeah. And I remember the first thing, I was working for a bunch of startups before, and I just wanted to get as much knowledge and experience as possible. And my mother, I was like, should I do this? And my mom's a single mom raising 4 kids. And you would think that she would kind of push me to more of a safe scenario. But she said, yeah, go for it. And I said, what happens if I fail? And she goes, you'll be exactly where you are right now, working for somebody. I was like, all right. And then I said, and what happens if nobody hires me because I failed? And she's like, you wouldn't want to work for a company like that. And once I went through what was the worst thing, then I was like, all right, let's do this. So I started an ad agency in the beginning of 2000, and still male dominated, but it was real male dominated industry. Right. And I grew to over 1 million within the first year. And there's a couple of things I did that I didn't even realize were really helpful for my growth.
Mm-hmm.
One of them was I wanted to travel.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I didn't want to do Europe. I wanted to do like developing countries, right? And at that time, internet, and still in these countries, internet's kind of off and on. So what I would have to do is I would have to have everything aligned and my whole team aligned so that if they couldn't reach me in those 2 weeks, the business would run. So I was super incentivized. And I forced myself to these breaks, right? So I had other friends and we would commit. It was right around June. So you had that Memorial Day weekend. It's that kind of transition. And then around Christmas and New Year's, at that time, I didn't have kids. And so that's what those 2 weeks we would travel. And business was a little bit different, right? It gets slows down around those. It changes a bit. And it forced me to have everything in check, like empower my people to make decisions on my behalf. And my mentality is I can fix anything that they've done, right? As long as you hire people. So that was the big one. And then also, when I was looking to grow my business, there's a point I couldn't afford when I was starting, and I couldn't afford 6 figures, hire somebody 6 figures to be like certain situations, and they were like asking for that if I wanted to hire that level. So I actually tapped into my heritage in the country I was from, Colombia, and I started hiring people from there. This is before this whole VA thing that we have now. And they were working on the same time zone. So I was able to I've hired people, employees like 2 or 3 in New York, and all my team was remote and nobody knew that it was remote. Not because didn't ask, I wasn't like nervous. I kind of was nervous. I was like, oh no, what are people going to think? But it worked out. Nobody even asked. Some of the stuff that holds us back, it's all in our head. I had to do it to keep growing, and probably I didn't know any better. Let's be honest. I was like, shoot, I need to cover this. Who can I do? I can't afford this, but if I pay somebody in Colombia who's super educated and experienced, that's a great amount of money for them. They have a great lifestyle and they're not commuting. So all that. And so I learned these quick little things that helped me move forward in just business and life. So I was able to, travel to 43 countries as I was building this business. And it sounds like it was just one of those oh, she thought it out. No, I had a desire. I wanted to build a business and I wanted to travel. And so that forced me to be more efficient and delegate.
I love that story. And like you said, it's great that you were in this situation that forced you to kind of, well, number one, so many people kind of don't even do what you did and create a business that fits their lifestyle. They just create a business because they have a passion or they don't want to work a corporate job anymore. But I think that's so super important to build a business around your lifestyle that makes you want to wake up every day and keep that lifestyle. And you had to get scrappy and you gave yourself permission to do that. And then you obviously had to systematize what you were doing. And you gave yourself permission and you trusted people to do their job, which all of those things for a new entrepreneur are just really extraordinary, because those are some of the biggest hurdles that people have in their businesses.
Still, even if they're running, we coach people that are in like their mid 6 figures and they still have that thing. That's the thing that's holding them back.
Yeah. And so now you're a mom. And you're probably like, I am so glad I did that.
Yeah, I'm glad I did it earlier. So I ended up being mom later in life. And so I have a rare disease called osteogenesis imperfecta, which is brittle bones. And my oldest sister has broken over like 200 bones, has always been in a wheelchair. I have it less severe. I've only broken 3. And so it's really great that I have it less severe, but so I went through IVF and it was a hard decision for me I'm thankful for science, but it's also a scenario that I had to actually look into, because here I was making sure that my kids don't have this disease. But this disease has gifted me so much wisdom. And my sister has been my biggest mentor, but now I'm removing it from my kids. It was a really hard decision, right? But the big thing was, because I was having my kids so later in life, like I had them at 40, that if I had the kid and the OI was severe, because they can't tell you how severe it would be, the kid starts breaking bones in the womb and could die. So since I had such a level, we were fortunate enough to go through IVF and PGD. So both my kids don't have that. So I was told I had less than 7% chance of having one going through this process, because 50% of my eggs had this disease. And then consider the aging, the 40%, not 40%. When you're 40 years old, your eggs, I'm giving you guys all a lesson on this stuff. I'm sure all the moms already understand this. So and I had two, and that was my first lesson, the meaning of surrender. So I used to think surrender was weakness, but actually surrender is a superpower. And during that time, there wasn't anything I could, work more hours, work harder, be more efficient. It was the first time I was like, I need to actually believe, and then also kind of do the things I need to get done, but also not relax, kind of like, this is happening if it's meant for me. But it's not one of these like total manifesting things. Like, you do have to do action, but it was a surrender. I couldn't push through it.
Yeah. That's an incredible story. And it's probably, your success probably enabled you to do that, to go through that process. And I don't know, I can't imagine that that's not connected. Maybe it was meant to be, because you had that opportunity. I don't know. But things like that, somebody who we were talking earlier, we grew up with single moms, and that comes with its own challenges, and having health issues. That just gives you so much grit. And I don't think people tap into that enough. They use it as an excuse sometimes. And really, that can be the thing that can create momentum and propel you forward, because as an underdog, you have nothing to lose. Right?
Yes. It's true. You have nothing to lose. You have everything to gain to move it forward. Have you ever seen that video? I think they're I can't remember right now, but they're on a football field. And the coach asked, like, if your parents were divorced, or aren't divorced, move up. And then you see all these kids moving up, and they say, look back, all these kids, these are the ones, and they're racing against you, and you had a head start. Yeah. And now I agree that all that stuff helped me out in the entrepreneurial world, because I got very used to all those setbacks. I was used to kind of being that person that I need to catch up to the rest of the people.
Yeah. So now you're running your business, your agency, and you're a mom, and you're trying to do all of the things. And I love how much you talk about trying to manage our time and avoid stress and burnout. So can you share some wisdom with us about how you manage to have this successful business and be a mom and do it all?
Yeah. And the key is having systems and not doing it all. Always having support. I think a lot of people think that they can't afford support. You actually can afford support. You just got to be very creative. And it's more, I feel like the more constraints you have, the more freedom you have. And if you see it from that framework, you're going to think of things that other people aren't even thinking about. Because imagine, I was just 25. I didn't have anybody funding me. I didn't figure things out. It was just like, I'm traveling. It looks like I can get to Peru in less than $1,000. Let's do this. And then I had to just figure things out. And the constraint was like, see, like some people are like, oh, I can't travel because it's too expensive. No, there's ways around it, right? You can make it work for you. So how do I balance it all? I figure out where the one most important thing is figuring out your rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
That takes an audit of your time and how you feel. So I used to think that I was really good at nighttime. And what I found out, it was just night. I didn't have distractions. But that it was not the time my mind was alert. What was happening is I was setting up meetings in the morning. And what happens in the morning, I was just like, and I was doing it based on other people's schedule, not mine. In the morning, that's when I should be doing the creative stuff. So after I did my audit, what I realized is, right around 2 p.m., I kind of go through a little bit of like a slump. Most people do, it seems like. And so instead of getting coffee, I get energized by talking to others. But now I moved all my conversations after lunch. And then in the morning, I do the creative stuff and I have no interruptions. And then I have a ritual in the beginning of the day and at the end of the day, so I can create the boundaries so it doesn't go over to my family. And a boundary is like, in a sense of, I wrap up my day, I call it a wrap. And this is how I say, people, if you do this one simple habit that'll take you 3 minutes, this will actually get you more focused and more productive. It seems so simple. And I challenge anybody to do it for 5 days. And so the wrap stands for review. Review what you actually accomplished that day. And then from there, say, what did I learn that day? What was a big learning? Because the more we take anything that was like a setback as a lesson, and we keep saying, looking for opportunities, we're training our brains to look for lessons and dive in, taking more risk. A is for assess, 1 to 5. Assess how great was your day? Like, was this an awesome day? And then the good thing about that is you can actually look back at your data and say, wow, every day that I had a 5, it's when I closed the deal or I had an amazing interview or whatever it is. And then you can start creating your days to have more wins. And then P is prioritize. And that is like, if you only had 4 hours of your time or less, what are 3 things that actually get your business moving forward? If you did that, there's so much knowledge in not only reflecting, but also creating your future and training your brain to kind of like, once you start like reviewing your day and you're like, oh, I did so much admin work, that's going to be your breakthrough of, I need to hire someone. I shouldn't be focusing on this.
Yeah, I am a huge fan of time audits. I always tell clients and people who are like, I just don't know how I'm going to get this done. I'm like, have you audited your time? What's that? Yeah. And I love that suggestion. And one thing I love to do too is like, it's fresh in your mind what you need to accomplish the next day or what's on board. So I too kind of jot down things because it takes a lot of mental energy the next day to get started. And you're like, where was I? Especially on a Friday to like a Monday. Like, I don't even know what I was doing. So that's really awesome. And I love this kind of idea of creating data, that you can kind of look at and track. So do you write this down physically or do you have like a spreadsheet or something or an app?
I would say do whatever is the fastest for you, right? Because everyone's always hooked. Like, how do you do it? It's like, just do it. Paper. If you are great at paper, do it. If you're great on your iPhone taking notes, just get to the habit. Because you can take the data and then you can hire somebody to put the data and analyze it if you really wanted to, right? But just getting that habit is the biggest thing. And then that's when it got really like, I understood what is my rhythm, right? What was I doing that I didn't even see? And then how can I make all my days a 5? Instead of like, I saw myself writing a lot of 3s and I was like, why 3? How can I make it a 5? And so you start looking at things differently. Yeah. And then even, so I went from like the agency to OwnersUP. And I think the biggest breakthrough for me is from the outside, sure, I grew it over 1 million. I had a team, I was traveling, but there were so many hard decisions to make.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have enough time to read a book because the decision had to be made in less than like 3-4 hours, or sometimes 12 hours. There wasn't a course, there wasn't anything else, and then people had to really understand my business. So I didn't have that feedback loop. And even though I had a team of people, they're biased, right? And it's totally different. And then, of course, the family, friends, they're a little biased too. And they might not know everything about the business. And maybe they're telling you based on like making you feel more secure and safe. So I know even when I want to say, hey, I'm going to travel on Christmas and New Year's, my family was like, oh, especially a Latin family, you're going to miss that?
Right.
What's going on? Oh my God. And they had rights. So I had to kind of say, hey, what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to actually travel to you guys and stay more time. And they're like, oh, so we worked on that. But all that being said is I wish what I had was like a group of people that were achieving similar things as I was. And I had a feedback loop and I had a coach who was actually telling me like, hey, this is happening. You need to check this out. You're about to burn out. Look at this, what you're going, you need to hire somebody, all these things. And I couldn't find it anywhere. And so we created that. And that came back from my running days. I've been an endurance athlete. I ran in college, ran New York, Boston Marathon. And I was like, even if I was going to do another marathon or something, I always train with others. And because you learn something, you guys are all going through it, you're learning quicker. You have feedback. You can answer things quickly. Why don't people in business have it? I feel like in these days, it's either you have a coach, you enter this like educational course, they do a cohort, you're after the same thing, but stuff happens. And unless you're an absolute person that's like constantly connecting with people, doing things, like it's a hard one, right? Like, how do you get it where you have your own group that where it's already curated for you and stats to get you into these habits?
So that's what that idea created OwnersUP.
OwnersUP.
Yeah, I think it's so fascinating too. And I find it really interesting how I think women and especially moms have a hard time asking for help or and I don't know, the proliferation of information. People think I can just figure it out. It's in it, and people don't understand the importance of surrounding themselves with one or more people who can see further than you and have experience. Like they don't value other people's experience because, entrepreneurship can be so lonely, and being a mom can be lonely. Online business owner can be very lonely. So what do you say to those people who are just like, I don't know? What are maybe some of the results that members have seen?
Well, that they don't know that they want to join something,
or they just they're hesitant to be part of something that can help them in their business. And I run across people who wait so long to ask for help.
So this is fascinating. I remember doing a keynote speech, and then I had everyone raise their hand. I was like, how many people like helping others? Everybody raise your hand. Everybody loves helping others. Right. How many people like asking for help? Barely anybody raised their hand. So of course there's this mismatch, right? And how do you get people past that? Well, there's a lot you have to do with that. But if they're already joining a group, that's what I'm saying. When you go to these groups and these educational things, when you're in these communities and they put you there, you're not asking for help. So you're in a situation that you're kind of in there. But if you're already in a container where it's like, hey, it's a small container, 5 people, everyone's going to be chatting, everyone's going to be helping each other out, then it's your role. You don't have to be the one that's like, hey, I need help. So that's the difference. And that's where I had a hard time. And that's a bigger thing for me. So I've never been the one that's like in the front row asking questions and everything. I'm kind of like the observer. I'm like the lurker. I'm the one who like hesitates to comment on something because I'm overthinking it, or like, how does it thing? I'm the one who doesn't like putting my problem out there so that all these people, so then how do I flourish? Right? It's hard. There's only one time I can say that I posted something super vulnerable in a group, and it was because I was going through my IVF journey of having a baby. And I was like, I was desperate. I will say. And I read that and I can still feel the emotion of that time that was there before. And now I wish I could go back to her and be like, you ended up having 2 kids. You got really lucky. You're like, everything's okay.
Oh, yeah. And I think that your business offers such a creative solution to that problem of getting lost in a crowd and appealing to that person who might have a hard time engaging or asking for help in a large group where they don't know people, but having this smaller cohort to, we did that when I learned how to podcast, and it was very helpful. You get to know people. It's not just like asking your question and like the sea of people that you don't know about what their experience is or who they are. And so I find that this like really this great niche that, you know, I'm surprised nobody's really thought about that much. So yeah, I think it's fascinating. So I'd love to also hear about how you approach goals, because you've achieved a lot of ambitious things, you know, from marathons to like running your business and doing all of those things. So I love to hear about how we can prioritize things that maybe we want to achieve, but somehow don't find their way to fruition. That's such a hard thing to do.
I will say I've been through a lot of fun challenges. And, you know, the self-made thing is a myth. And there's no celebration on that one. Like, you shouldn't. Like, every athlete has a coach, has a family, has people who like said, yes, I'm gonna like help you on this journey and just navigate this whole world while you perform. So they were never self-made. And a great book is called Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. Great book. But we keep celebrating this self-made thing, right? Look back on all my challenges. Mine were never by myself. It was always with a small group of people. Even the IVF was with other people. I would have not made it. It is an emotional roller coaster. And if you don't have a group of people, it's like from COVID, even the introverts were like, oh, this is way too much introvert. You know, like I need some people. That's how humans are. So I would say that if you want to achieve anything, any monumental goal, form at least 2 people. All you need is 2 people. That's it. I think 3, the power of 3 is huge. And you just check in, you have a format of how to go about it. But that's how I feel like I've achieved everything. You're gonna laugh at this. I had an accountability group for meeting my husband.
Wow. And how long was it between being a part of the group and actually meeting him? How long did that take?
Less than 6 months.
Wow.
So what I realized, and every group I had a different framework, right? But this framework was more about, what are my values? How do I rank them? And what I realized in relationships, what I was getting myself into was the gray area of my values. So I was with a guy, but I was like, oh, it's great. And I didn't stop myself because I was like, oh, but all these other values are great. But I did not hold to, because we're all smart about like what we want. But it's holding the boundaries and having other people remind us, not like, you shouldn't do that, but like empowering us of the vision that we have for ourselves. So if you surround yourself with 3 other people or 2 other people, because you're a group of 3, with people who see you in this vision that you want, you are more likely going to succeed. And then of course there's a framework of all of that, but just getting yourself to that, amazing.
I mean, and I think too, it's just that just makes you be super purposeful about what you want to achieve. And that sometimes can be half the battle.
Uh-huh.
It's just really, not just keeping it on a piece of paper, but being very committed. So you have this concept called a focus multiplier.
Yes, we talked about it, the wrap.
Oh, yeah?
Yes, that is the focus multiplier.
Oh,
It's the wrap. It's the RAP.
gotcha.
And the
Okay.
reason why is because like you're not most people in business, and I've been there. We're like finishing the day and we're busy, and then we sit back and we're like, what the heck did we do?
Yeah.
And then we go on the hamster wheel again and go,
Mhm.
go, 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 and never think, is this the best use of my time? So funniest thing happened when I was in my groups. We coach a bunch of groups. Guess who were the most successful ones in the short amount of time, with the amount of time they had? Moms.
Oh,
Of
yeah.
young ones. Because they knew that they only had a certain amount of time. They knew what they could take on, and then they had to ask themselves, is this the best use of my time when my kid's napping or when my kid's doing this? And if they couldn't, then they had to figure out, if it's something that they needed to get done, they had to figure out how to get it done without them doing it. So constraints are your best friend. See, a lot of people see that as like a terrible thing. Actually, no, it is your gift. Because everybody else who has lots of time is doing stuff that they don't need to do. And guess what? It leads them to burnout.
Yes.
You can only do so much. You can only pull up. Sure, you can do some hours, like a sprint of like a week of like 60 hours. You're going to feel burnt out, right? But like that luxury of being like, I have to get this done. And then they examined it. So like, this is my thing about like goals. So people set a goal and they don't break down what it has to get done. And then they go and they start and they're like, oh, whoa, this is like a task that should take me a whole day, but they didn't think about it. It's like going to the grocery store. And I've done this where I want to do different things for my kids for breakfast. And so I go in, and really my kids probably have a 30-minute attention span. After that, I'm going to deal with some tantrums. So I'm like, I'm going to bake this. And then I go on the website and I'm looking at it, and the whole recipe is taking forever to go. Then my kid's like, and I was like, wow, I didn't think this out, right? Then I'm looking at the box of like the flour, seeing what the ingredients are. And then the kid's giving me a little notice like, time's up. And guess what? I didn't finish what I needed to get done. Instead, if I actually said, here, let me have the constraints. I want to bake something, has to have 4 or 5 ingredients. I have the list and it has to be this time. Then I'm just going to the grocery store. Then it's like, when it's time to go, I'm just doing it. Right. But you see how that different analogy, that first analogy is how people work every day. They're like, let me podcast. Okay, I'm just going to like go and do it. Oh, shoot. I have to like send emails. I have to like get all this. They forgot all these things. And then they're like, oops, don't want to do it anymore. So the fastest way to get around that is probably what you did, is join some other people. So you learn from other people as they're doing it. Right.
Yeah. And that's what people, when they talk to me, they're like, yeah, I want to start a business and I'm just going to quit my job. I'm like, wait a minute. Because really, you utilize your time so much better when you're like, okay, I've got from, 8 to 10 every day or whatnot to work on my business. You're going to focus on the things that are important, like you mentioned. And it is. And I hear people say, oh, I can't start a business because I have kids and whatever. And it's like, I've also talked to women who have written a book and run a beauty empire with 3 hours a day.
And it's because they valued those 3 hours. So it goes back to that same situation of like asking for help and figuring out your time. Yeah. And the value of your time. And yes, you could do everything, but you won't last that long. You will get burnt out.
Yeah. Yeah. And you think about it, and everybody's given the same 24 hours in a day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all about how you utilize it and what you do with it. And that's just totally what's going to help you achieve your goals. But I love that you have like this system, because we know we need to use our time better, but they just don't know how.
Yeah, the first part is being aware of it, right? So that
Mm-hmm.
awareness of like, actually, what did you accomplish? And then start thinking about it like, because in the Philippines, you can pay somebody $4 an hour to get some of these things. So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
is this worth your time?
Mm-hmm. Right. And that too is a lot of business owners are like, well, I'm utilizing my time, so it's free. But
It's
that's
not.
a myth too. you
There's
know?
always a cost, right? You could be doing
Right.
something different. You could,
Yeah.
like these activities, yeah, it's free, but you could actually be doing activities that actually generate revenue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So definitely a reminder for anybody listening who feels like the day slips through their fingers and they're struggling to make revenue. I don't know if you have any ideas on what are those things that people should be focusing on to generate revenue. I love to ask people that question, because when that time management comes up and people say focus on what moves the needle, then I get that question too. Well, what is that? It's going to vary a
Well,
little bit depending on your
yeah,
business,
it
but
depends on their business and it depends
mm-hmm,
where they're at. All right. So in the beginning of your business, tap into low hanging fruit. That's your network.
mm-hmm,
People think like, oh, but they're not in that industry. They know people. Everybody
mm-hmm,
knows they have their own network, right? Just ask for a request, get your business going that way. I always encourage people, don't focus on your website, don't all of that. Get your first guinea pigs, I call them case studies. And then even if you have to do a discounted rate, what you're gonna do is perform, get testimonials, and then start from there.
mm-hmm.
If you're past that stage and you're kind of like going based on referrals, you got to get out of that referral scenario. So then from there, like what are ways that you feel comfortable marketing, right?
Mm-hmm.
We had a member who kind of was following this like influencer and they signed up for their program. And then the influencer's like, post social media, this. And he's like, he wasn't in for it. Right.
Yeah.
This is not what he wanted to do. And then he's like, what the heck? So then we figured out what did resonate with him.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone has there's tons of ways to go marketing. Now you got to figure out what works for you
Mm-hmm.
instead of following something that doesn't work for your lifestyle. And so that's where you have to do that analysis of like what it is. Cause like some people, it's out of their comfort zone, but is it what they want? Like a lot of people do these launches and it's like, that could be like time consuming, especially if you have kids. How do you pull it off?
Mm-hmm.
So those are different questions. But what I do think is like, when you prioritize goals, what ends up happening is we also have a bias. And what that means is we do things that we're comfortable
Mm-hmm.
by default because it's
Mm-hmm.
easier for us.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't even realize it. So we have a lot of people creating systems or instead of doing the sales and marketing.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you figure that out is you say, okay, do I have enough leads in the pipeline and are they predictable? If you say no to that, then you should be focused on marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you have a lot of leads and they're not converting, and you then from there you focus on your sales. What can you do in the sales?
Mm-hmm.
And then if you're at capacity, meaning you can't take on any more clients, or you're like 3 clients away from like capacity, then you need to work on your systems.
Mm-hmm. I love that advice. It's really simple. It's the magic 3
Yeah,
that our brain can
yeah.
handle. That's great advice. I haven't heard anybody kind of make it that kind of simple before. I love that. So yeah, and I know that you also have tips for working parents together. So, is there a way that we can work better as parents when we're having to partner and juggle things with somebody else? Do you have any insights for us on that?
Yeah, I learned this one from a mom, and this one was a great one. She was a mom of 6 kids.
Yeah.
And she said, sign up, create an email address and sign up like the teacher stuff, everything you sign up for your kids, and then
Mm-hmm.
have it forwarded to both emails. because usually one person
Yes.
has it, then you're forwarding it, then you're reminding, then you're doing the freaking task yourself practically. But in
Yeah.
this case, you have it automated, you have a system in place, and then you have the calendar. That was game changer, because I'm the one who was like signing up my email, then forwarding it to my husband, then putting it on there, then putting it all on me. But that one little trick saved me so much time. Such a silly little trick, but it works.
That's great. And as your kids get older and may have different interests and activities, oh my goodness, it's crazy. And then if they're in different schools and different grades, and it's a lot.
It's a whole other game. That's what one email, I was like, that's brilliant. And then you don't miss anything. You're on it. You can go check on it, or you can have it forwarded. We have it forwarded because sometimes we don't check, but now it's like all the information. It's easier to search. Oh, one last thing.
Yeah.
So I use 1Password. 1Password, like not 1Password. It's a tool. Don't use 1Password. I mean, sorry,
like, wait a minute.
Use a password management system. I still happen to use one that's called 1Password. So you remember 1Password, but it generates it and saves all this stuff. And this has helped. Like my husband has it on his, I have it. We share like logins and things. So he's not asking me, or I'm not asking him, oh, what's our kid's social security, or what's this, or what's this credit card, or, what's this info? It's all in there. So yes, password management tool, a must. It's a pain in the butt to set up, but once you have it, it's great.
I love that. We could talk forever. You have so much wisdom to share with us, but I know we're getting close to the end of our time. If you had anything that you want moms listening to take away from this conversation, what would it be?
Find people. Just go out and find people. 2 other people. You can achieve anything.
Yeah.
But don't assume you can achieve it alone. Have other people, that sounding board, and I promise you'll get it through faster than you imagined.
I love advice. Community is so important, and it doesn't have to be a giant community. And actually, it's a little better if it's done. It's not.
The magic is smaller. Community you can hide.
I love that. So where can listeners connect with you and learn more about your company and good stuff?
Go to OwnersUP.com, and I post a lot on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is where I kind of jam, and then I'm starting to do more YouTube, so you can find me there too.
Nice. Nice. I love that. Thank you so much, Tanya, for your time. It's been awesome.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much to Tanya Alvarez for an enriching episode. And I hope you are leaving with a wealth of inspiration and practical strategies to enhance your journey as a mompreneur. Tanya's story and insights have certainly shed light on the path to success without compromising personal well-being, which this podcast is all about, preserving your well-being in the midst of your entrepreneurial journey. So if you found today's conversation valuable, please be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss another episode, and leave a review. Your comments mean so much. And share this episode with fellow mompreneurs. And I just want to say a special thank you at this busy time of year for taking time to listen to this podcast. I appreciate it so much. So stay tuned for more empowering discussions. And until next time, remember, you are a good enough mompreneur. And thank you so much for joining me on this journey.